Melbourne Mavericks win as well. I think they're solid across the board. I don't think they have any particular weaknesses on map types. And they just have really mastered the GOAT's composition. They know how to play this. They know how to use those barriers, the discords, to really get the most out of this. And it looks like we're having something quite interesting here. We've got a Reinhardt and a Winston for Breakaway. Yeah,
and it's going to be Mini. We'll take down Baby Poro. By the way, this fight was pretty over pretty quickly. That's a huge start for Melbourne Mavericks. 3 in like a split second. Let's get it out of the way early,
course,
though.
By interesting, I mean doesn't work all that well.
Let's get this out of the way. Mini, the guy. We got that wrong last week. We apologize. No, I watched the VODs. You said she as well.
Look, I don't know what you're talking about.
Are you going to try and deflect blame?
Never happened. No. Never happened. I mean, like, I wasn't confused about, which one was which, but...
I got confused by your...
We do have a girl playing here, though, and Baby Poro is on the support here for Breakaway Esports. You know, I thought she was being replaced by Aki. Perhaps that was only a temporary situation. Perhaps she's just coming back into sub here. Either way, she has played with these guys for quite a while, so she's definitely no stranger to this team and should be able to fit into this quite well.
Well, Breakaway Esports doing well here in this fight. They do flip the point into their favor. Mini was just sort of hanging around for a little bit and he does get taken down.
Yeah, but it seems like they want to stick on this composition, so they've obviously, tried this out in the scrims and had some sort of success with it. The Reinhardt and the Winston. So you're subbing out the D.Va, which means you don't have that win condition of the self-destruct. That's quite big. You can't combo it with the grab. And you also don't have the defense matrix, which is vital to keeping your Rein alive.
Well, Gravity Surge is going to come out now from Slitsor J. Of course, as you mentioned, Gino, no self-destruct. It is a one-for-one trade, though. Oily throwing out his own self-destruct. I guess he does enough to contend with an opposition D.Va. Fluoro with a sound barrier now for the Melbourne Mavericks, committing the ultimate to try and take this point back. It is still in Breakaway Esports' possession at the moment. Now the grab from Nox. It's a late grab, though, compared to the rest of the fight.
Yeah, but he saw Baby Poro use the Transcendence. He was just like, thank you very much, I'll take it from here. Grab, easy cleanup for Mavs after that. And they seem to be doing just fine against this composition. That said, Breakaway Esports about to be evened up on the scoreboard by the Mavs, and they're going to stick with this. I'm just waiting for some point for the D.Va to come out. It just seems like such a strange swap, but look, they've made it work and won a couple of fights so far.
We'll see how it comes. Oh, well, okay. Well, Mini's just going to pick up a quick 2. And that's not a good sign. It's going to make the swap. But the question is, do you swap out 4 into the D.Va? Like, do you get rid of the Reinhardt or the Winston?
Well, it's usually Quad J, right? So 4
but
is the main tank. So usually you would see Quad J go back onto
But do you want
D.Va.
the Winston here?
I don't think you do. You're seeing Mini get so much value off the Tesla cannon just because they can't eat up the rest of these projectiles with the barrier, which means the Winston is doing a lot more damage off the back of the other projectiles that are getting people low.
Yeah, I think this is time to make this change now. Oh, and a wasted Graviton Surge, basically, with the fight was already won in favor of the Melbourne Mavericks, up to 91%. And really, even if they do make the change now, it may be too little too late. And Quad J's almost got himself the primal range here, too. It's just too late. You might as well. But they didn't get to the
I mean, he had to use the grab there. Yeah. I think they knew they weren't going to get back there in time. Right, so Breakaway Esports trying to change the paradigm here, trying to be the innovators, the ones who finally break through and find the solution for the GOATS meta. Well, I don't think you've done that just yet, guys.
Well, it's still GOATS, basically. It's just not quite the same.
I mean, it's a triple support, it's a triple tank. I'm not sure if that would fall under the umbrella. I feel like you do need at least... no, I mean, D.Va, you just don't not run a D.Va. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter if it's dive, it doesn't matter if it's GOATS, it doesn't matter if it's... I mean, D.Va is probably the...
Well, apparently they don't want to run D.Va.
I haven't seen a hero pick rate list in competitive... of competitive matches for quite a while, but
D.Va's
I imagine D.Va would be right up the top at the moment.
Well, D.Va's always been at the top, right? For a long time now, and with this sort of meta, you'd think is like 100% just about. But Breakaway Esports trying to break away from that mold, and break away from that meta, and they do not want to run D.Va, apparently. They're going with Slitsor J now into the main, Quad J over to the Zarya. Still mixing it up a little bit, 4 staying on the Reinhardt. Melbourne Mavericks keeping it pretty much the same. But it is working out slightly here into the favor of Breakaway Esports with Mini going down. Now Baby Poro is going to try and take out 4 balls here. Breakaway do take the point.
So we saw this in the last match between Heist and Kangai. Kangai, while being seemingly worse overall on the control maps, were able to take away Mecha Base with their use of the May. I think it was them. Whoever had the May won. Anyway, and I think you see that here where a team that might not be better overall, it's just so effective. If you get those couple of cutoffs with the Ice Wall, and you see there, unfortunately, rotating a little bit too late.
Yep. And it does catch them out, but still the charge from 4 was able to grab Winter. And D-Field with the rally, maybe able to keep everyone up and safe and alive. 4 was taking quite a bit of damage, but gets killed up. And for Breakaway Esports, you're right, the May sort of being the outlier here and the difference maker. Still, yeah, it was late on that rotation. They still were able to cover it, though. Yeah, they did manage to get through there. Not really thanks to the May wall, but nonetheless, I mean, Sleuth hasn't actually done a huge amount of damage yet. This is coming up to the 3rd fight now, and he still doesn't have the Blizzard, but luckily his teammates have got him covered in this situation. And as we talked about in that first series as well, Zen, oh no, they've actually found them down the bottom here. It's a really precarious situation, and the boot from the Lucio is enough to finish that fight before the start. They do get trade one back onto Jervis. He's overextended a little bit to get that kill, but he will get back to the fight faster than the Zen will. Yeah, definitely will. So 70% now for Breakaway Esports. They will also have 5 ultimates going into this next fight. Melbourne Mavericks, though, should very well have 6 ultimates. And there's that May wall. That's going to be the deciding factor here. If Breakaway can get the frustration or 2. Oily was one of the members of the Melbourne Mavericks that got through the wall before everyone else, and that's actually not too bad. Was able to stay alive, which is quite critical for the Melbourne Mavericks. Still, they do lose Winter, and they are throwing out their ultimates here. Both teams are, and that's really how it should be at 94%. There's no more time, and the Mavericks aren't even able to get the Graviton Surge out through Nox. We're going to be tied 1-1. No, I think Nox needed to use that like very early in that fight. They knew if they didn't win that they weren't going to get onto the point. So why not just at least have a go with it? I think what we're seeing here is that the Ice Wall ability is almost as good as an ult on this map, right? And I'll tell you exactly why. If you split the team up into 3 and 3 to 2 and 4, anything like that, that's basically as an effective as an Earth Shatter could be, as a Grav could be, as a Self-Destruct could be, okay? If you've got a Grav, you literally can, you know, lock 2 people in position while the rest of the team can't help them. That's exactly what you're doing with an Ice Wall. It's that effective on a map where the chokes are that small. Well, let's saw Jay. Now, we did see, if I remember correctly, going into Sanctuary. I can't, you're right, I can't even also remember who was running the May, but they also did bring it here into Sanctuary. Didn't work for a little bit, but it didn't work, though. Not the same as it does in Mecha Base. It's a very different style of play. Yeah, there are some chokes, but they're definitely not as easy to block off. It's not as effective. No, it's quite the tough option. So I think it's the right decision to go back to the more standard things. And here we go. They are actually running a Diva. Quad J. They've convinced him. For 2 points, they've been like, Quad J, please. Well, let's see whether or not that could be the difference maker, or whether or not it was sort of the May anomaly, in a sense, for Breakaway Esports, and that's how they were able to get the point here so far on Busan. Point's going to be unlocked. It's 2-for-2 trade. Mini going down to Jervis, who also apparently gets Oily as well. So this is great for Breakaway Esports. They only lost really 1 or 2 members there. And they will be able to get this point. Is still being contested. Always that pesky Lucio hanging around. Yeah, that was, so Mervs went a little bit too deep there, okay? But they saw some squishy targets. They saw Baby Poro quite low, and they said, okay, let's dive together and get her. But at that point, Mini and Oily, I don't know if they LOS their healers, or perhaps they were just under too much pressure to help the tanks out. But it was actually an easy cleanup for Breakaway after that. So they do cap the point out now, and will be starting on this 3rd and deciding stage of Busan. Obviously, Breakaway Esports will have a very slight ultimate economy in their favor after winning that first fight. And man, when the Brigade is getting the first pick to start the fight, and you don't even need to use really any ultimates. I don't even really count Rally, because Rally you're just going to use anyway. That is just huge for Breakaway Esports. Yeah, it's a very, as you say, I think, you know, Rally just happens. Yeah. It's something you can get more value out of in a fight, but you don't see it all that often. I reckon probably 60–70% of the time it's just used for that 100 armor on 6 of your members. You don't even get the speed boost out of it, really. So
as you say, we have less on the side of Mavs, and they're going to go in with a sound barrier here.
Yeah, early sound barrier, Graviton Surge over the self-destruct. That's going to cancel the attack for Melbourne Mavericks, but also guess what? Genome, Forbles, Transcendence used.
It's not a great way for them to lose that fight, is it? But wow, you've really got to give some props to Baby Poro there, playing with fire, just dancing on the edge there as 4 went down to probably 25, 50 health as she rotated back between the members of her team, trying to keep them alive. He was just a dash away from dying. Early
fight again. Now, this is good because we're up to 90% now. Melbourne Mavericks need to, at some point throughout this, try and get someone onto the point if they have even any members left alive. 94%. Melbourne Mavericks, though, it doesn't matter if you win the fight if you don't get into the point in time. You saw that charge through from Mini, I'm assuming. No, someone else was able to get onto the point. That is critical. Luckily, they didn't forget about that, Gino, because even though they won the fight, they still needed to stand up someone over there.
Yeah, we actually see Slids on the point at the moment, trying to do it all by himself. He's fully charged, and he does have the Graviton Surge. Unfortunately, him and his trusty Brigida sidekick. Are they going to prolong this fight?
I think they maybe just want to continue to stagger and bleed this fight out because they're going to have players coming back for Breakaway Esports. They don't have any ults though, but neither do the Melbourne Mavericks. This may end up being a mistake here.
I think it was probably a fair decision from Slids. There was a chance that that fight was going to go the way of Breakaway Esports. As you said, the respawn advantage, if they had perhaps got, you know, one less death on their side, one more kill with the Grav, the respawn advantage might have flipped away into favor of Breakaway Esports. As it doesn't, the Mavs are on the point with 40%, and I like how Nox started a bit earlier with his Graviton Surge that time. Didn't die wondering.
No, never want to die wondering. Shield very low here for 4. Needs to be careful, but no Earth Shadow to worry about for Mini just yet. Sound Barrier from Fluoro, and the stack though of the Transcendence of Forbles. And now we're going to see the Earth Shadow does pick up 2 members. It picks up, I believe that was Mini. Winter's quite low as well. Going to put that rally immediately for the Melbourne Mavericks as they're just getting some of their ultimates up. The Earth Shadow 2 now used by Mini at the exact same time, and that is going to be the double in favor of Mini, up to 71% now for the Melbourne Mavericks. And they do take that fight pretty convincingly as well, still keeping the Graviton Surge available for the next fight after that.
So Kodje is going to throw himself off the map to reset, and an interesting thing I picked up in the middle of that fight was 4 not going for the charge. So he gets 3 people down with the Earth Shatter. They are out in front of him. He, you know, definitely had an opportunity to pick up a kill, perhaps a D-Mech there if he had gone in for the charge. But he plays it more conservatively. He thinks, okay, my barrier's almost down. I'll sit with my team, but it doesn't work out for him in the end.
Graviton Surge onto the pillar here, onto the point. 99% to 99%. Breakaway Esports pick up the first 2, but they are going to see the response now via the Melbourne Mavericks. The self-destruct from Whiteley. Now it's going to be the Earth Shadow though from 4 for Breakaway Esports. Quad J takes out Window, and they're just getting the advantage now. The numerical advantage of the players onto the point. Mini's going to come back as the Wrecking Ball, but he may not be able to get here in time. Breakaway Esports, are they going to shock the Melbourne Mavericks to start off this series? There is Mini though with the pile driver and actually D-Mex Quad J. This fight may not be necessarily completely over with just yet, but of course the longer this fight goes on, the quicker that overtime bar will tick down. The second that a member of Melbourne Mavericks gets off of the point, actually I forgot by the way, it's actually in favor of the Melbourne Mavericks. There we go. As soon as that ticked over to Breakaway Esports, it gets them the win. That went down so quick. And for a split second there, Genome, I was having deja vu flashbacks of Kanga Esports and Heist because Breakaway Esports got it up to 99% to 0. And we saw then, of course, the comeback for our Melbourne Mavericks to get up to 99 to 99. And for a second, I was like, oh my goodness.
But not this time, ZeNox. Not this time. No. Breakaway here, giving us a very, very great start to this series. That's not what we were expecting. You know, we talking 3-1 maybe, and, you know, maybe Mavs will come back and pick up the next couple of maps. It's certainly possible, but I think Breakaway are showing us that they're not perhaps the pushovers that some of the other top teams, look, I'll be honest, I've heard them say that they consider them to be.
Well, I guess they're just trying to show up and show off a little bit here. Obviously on mecha pace that may prove quite pivotal from Slids or Jay, sort of gets them back into the series here on Busan. And you know, to go up 99% to 0%, they were playing it very well, very aggressive, pushed up quite far up for Breakaway Esports, but man, it really was looking to like deja vu that if they had lost that 100 to 99.
I mean, something that I'm starting to consider now with this map win is, could Breakaway Esports go up into that third position? Before now, honestly, I didn't think it was going to happen. Heist have looked really fantastic throughout the season, almost taking Mavs all the way to the end. Maybe Breakaway will do that here today. Of course, those two teams, Breakaway and Heist, will be meeting to probably decide third place in week 5. So if they can have a strong showing here, you know, maybe we even start favoring them against Heist, this team who has really had some fantastic results at the start of this season.
That also the map win for Kanga Esports at the end of that series, that could become a pivotal factor as well, possibly for the map win differential. If it comes down to maybe a tiebreaker, that could just be a difference maker between Breakaway Esports and Heist, possibly.
Yep,
that could have huge ramifications. I'm going a little far into the future here, but yeah, you never know.
Kanga and the freshmen seem pretty strongly locked down the bottom there at the moment. But it seems like there's twos, you know, Melbourne and Order fighting it out for the first 2 slots, Heist and Breakaway fighting it out for 3 and 4, and Freshman and Kanga battling over the wooden spoon. So Hollywood is going to be our next map here.
Chosen by Melbourne Mavericks.
Indeed.
Probably expecting them to bounce back though here on Hollywood and most likely take this win out, although maybe we shouldn't be counting out Breakaway Esports to go potentially 2 up in the series. If they do that though, Gino, I would be pretty surprised.
I mean, this is one of those maps that we weren't expecting Heist to come through on, and they picked up against Mavs last week to push it on to that game 5. So obviously they've they're confident in it though. They've picked it themselves. Of course, the loser does get to pick the next map. First map is decided every week, that first control point. So for instance, this week, everyone playing Basan. But from then on, you really got to do your research. You got to do your homework and work out. Is this a map that you're good on, or is it a map perhaps that the opponent has some weaknesses? Now, once again, we're seeing Breakaway opt not to run the Diva.
Yeah, very interesting to see that from Breakaway Esports. They're going for the Winston, they're going for the Reinhardt. They're trying to be innovative. It may come back to bite them here as Quad J is going to be taken down by Oily, showing that the Diva is very much quite powerful. You would kind of want to choose it here, especially with the Melbourne Mavericks now attacking and doing a decent job, although D-Field 4 go down. So does Mini for the Melbourne Mavericks, which may just slow down the Mavericks slightly here, although pinned into the corner. Oily just proving to be the difference maker, I think, there on the Diva. Getting that high ground, and just...
Yeah, I'm really not liking this composition, ZeNox. If we think back to Control, they won that when they played standard Goats.
And May.
And May, sure. She's particularly strong on mecha-based. Yep. Okay, we've seen that now, but going into the other maps where, you know, those compositions, especially with May, aren't really so viable, I really do wonder why they stick on this Winston. We're just seeing it doesn't have enough damage and enough damage mitigation.
Soundbarrow from Fluoro, now the Transcendence though from Baby Pyro for Breakaway Esports to try and counter that, but it's gone a little bit early. That's going to allow now the Graviton Surge with the self-destruct to be thrown in there for the Melbourne Mavericks. And of course, not only that, but they also don't have that potential for the Graviton Surge of Slitsaw J. There's no self-destruct to follow it up. Now Quad J is going to switch over, and I suspect 4 should head over to the Winston here on stage 2. That would be ideal, no?
No, I think you could definitely stick on,
right, on the
on that here. I mean, they've switched over now. We do see Quad J on the Diva, so it seemed like it was a first point pick only. Of course, a lot of teams are picking Winston on that first point, but they're usually comboing it with the Xayah and the Diva, not with a Reinhardt as well.
Yeah, well, this is the first time we've seen that. This is the Earthshatter through the limousine from Mini. Doesn't quite get the full effectiveness that he would have liked. The early Graviton Surge, though, is going to come out from Slitsaw J, not requiring the self-destruct. That, of course, was going to take a while to build up anyway from Quad J, who just switched over, now actually has it already. Never mind, that didn't take long at all. There's a quick self available for Quad J. Fight one, though, for Breakaway Esports. Nicely done. Isn't it funny, once you switch to the Diva, how easy that was? They also get the stagger onto Oily.
And I think you're completely right there, ZeNox. You can just see it's night and day between those two compositions. I mean, it's not like the Mavs have a very easy target. I mean, there's the Zenyatta, sure, but look at all the peel he's got. He can get Xayah Bubbles, he can get Defense Matrix, he can get an Amp Heal from Lucio, he can get a Shield Bash from Brigitte. There are so many options to help your Zen out that the Monkey going in, it's not like the dive meta. You can't just blow him up instantly.
This high ground play now from Quad J as well, really just showing even more of the effectiveness of the D.Va into the backline. No, maybe don't force that self-destruct.
That's not a good spot to use it.
Oh, no, he did. I was hoping he wouldn't. Sometimes you're just going to concede in that scenario. Definitely wasn't going to be able to pick up any kills. Does get back into the back, though. Maybe able to help prolong this fight into the favor of Breakaway Esports. Sound barrier now with Jervis on the Earth Shatter from 4, but it was the huge Earth Shatter from Mini that sort of gets them back into this fight here for the Melbourne Mavericks, and I think they may very well be able to snowball this, and for the Breakaway Esports, they've used all of their ultimates into that fight yet to just get steamrolled through.
Yeah, as soon as they got that pick onto the Reinhardt, you could see Mavs getting ready to slowly push through the rest of the Breakaway Esports lineup. I mean, Quad J using that self-destruct there was a little bit, you know, a bit of a coin flip, I think. It's like, you know you're getting zero value out of that. It's locked in a room. The self-destruct is doing nothing. It's just, do you value the mech enough to get back in on the second half of that fight and use it?
2.5 minutes remaining as we reach the second checkpoint here onto Hollywood. Mini with an Earth Shatter available. 4's low though, and he's going to obviously die, which means his shield comes down. It's an easy Earth Shatter here for Mini, and the Melbourne Mavericks should be able to get an easy second point. Maybe Poro is going to get the particle barrier onto her, which actually was quite interesting because it almost baited Mini into a bad position, which is why he got taken down. Yet still, it's the Graviton Surge and self-destruct combination that will get it done for the Melbourne Mavericks here, and again, cleaning up Breakaway Esports.
Moving on to the third point now.
What do you know, Gino? Ults used, fight one.
A couple of, yeah, I mean, that happens. You know, ults build pretty fast in Overwatch.
They do.
They might have done a global nerf at one point, but it still doesn't stop them. Those Q buttons being ready to use pretty damn often these days, especially when the fights last for as long as they do in this sort of meta.
Yeah.
And damage is
Can you imagine
plentiful.
without the 25%, I believe it was, in this sort of meta? Tries to Q every 30 seconds.
You Earth Shatter, you bring your hammer up, then you put it down again. Yeah.
Graviton Surge, this Breakaway Esports trying to take the fight early here. Sound barrier as well. Pretty standard to see this sort of aggressiveness and making sure that that payload doesn't move too close to the final checkpoint, and it's going to work. 2 minutes and 50 seconds to commit a lot of ultimates, and I kind of feel like they're going to have to fall back a little bit more now going into this next fight possibly. Or they could still hold an aggressive position.
I mean,
they do have self-destruct and transcendence, so it's not as if they've got nothing, you know.
And they've got spots to fall
Melbourne
back
don't have
to
much
if they need to. The fact that they've got all 6 members there, I think, makes it a good spot to hold, and they're going to opt to do that. Both barriers used for both teams.
Ooh, that was close.
4 just manages to get there with the help of that Harmony Orb and the Transcend.
Yeah, that was the nice shield bash onto 4, got him to about 40 health or so. Self-destruct was used as well by Quad J, and I believe the Transcendence too from Baby Poro to help out with some of that healing, and does keep Breakaway Esports in this positional advantage. And not only that, but going into the next fight, Graviton Surge could be used too.
Yep, Nox ready to go with that one. Oily, I'm sure, is not too far off his self-destruct as well, but then again, Slith's just got 10% in a single right-click, so he's ready to go with his as well.
No. Could be the battle of the Graviton Surges here. Relatively low health on this shield for 4, and that's going to be the Graviton Surge. And it's going to be an easy wipe because of that low health shield, making it quite easy for the damage to basically just flow through. It's a team kill for the Melbourne Mavericks, 1 minute 30 seconds as they come around the bend.
So they use 3 ultimates, they get it done very quickly, very cleanly, and they really need 3 people on the payload right now. There's no, I mean, they're not really doing anything up the front here, and they need this cart to get through the choke. They want it to be through there as Breakaway come back. Every meter or 2 they got there is actually quite important. Yeah, and remember, of course, Little J still has that Graviton Surge. Mini using the Earth Shatter doesn't quite get that full effectiveness. Deerfield down, but we are going to see the Earth Shatter now from 4. Not going to be that effective. Did catch Winter though, but Winter able to stay alive thanks to the Transcendence of 4 balls. Self-destruct just in front of the payload at the moment. Nox is going to have another Graviton Surge here already. Unbelievable how quick. Did that get eaten? Yes, it did. Somehow, no, actually, never mind. Just couldn't quite see it because it was underneath the limousine. And Melbourne Mavericks continue to just push forward, but they lose Mini, and Oily's been demeched. Remember, Gino, 40 seconds left. That payload's pretty close, which means that it's a little bit of a walk back. It is, and they do have a lot of fast heroes now.
They got to stop this bleed. This fight's bleeding badly for Melbourne.
It is, but you see Breakaway, you know, they've gone off to the Doomfist. Slids is going to have to change back over to the Zaya now that they've stabilized a little bit. And Quadjay, as you point out, he's pretty close. He'll get the mech now.
All right.
He's back in time, and there will be one more fight where Mavs needed to go on a little bit longer, because you can see they're about to get 6 ults.
Sound barrier is going to be popped from Fluoro. Jervis responds with a sound barrier of his own. Shadowed out from many, connects onto Jervis, but not too many more members onto Breakaway Esports. Grav tried to get countered by 4, but he had to get the shield back in time for the self-destruct. Unable to do so, apparently, as I believe the shield got damaged down. Overtime bar is going to take up now. Self-destruct into the backline from Quadjay. 4 balls with the Transcendence now to stop a lot of that damage now flowing into Melbourne Mavericks, because they've already lost Winter. Now they lose Mini. They can't lose anymore. Winter's even going to switch over to the Doomfist, as Oiley's going to be demeched into the back. Nox just trying to get as much damage as possible, but they are getting forced further and further away from the payload. Basically, Fluoro and Formals throwing their bodies onto that limousine. They want to get inside, they want to ride, but not going to be allowed. They get denied.
It's not a car, it's a coffin for the side of the Melbourne Mavericks. They don't make it to the end there. Precipitously close, but they can't quite push it the last couple of meters. And now, Kanga.
Have we not,
Breakaway
have
Esports.
We not given
Sorry,
Breakaway?
Getting my animals mixed up slightly there. Breakaway Esports.
At least you didn't say blank.
No, I've got a new team to mix up the names for today. I try and mix it around a bit, give them a little bit of love. Yeah. It is Breakaway who are giving themselves a nice little win condition there. I mean, getting to the end of Hollywood, it's not a big ask.
Have we underrated Breakaway Esports coming through?
I think everyone has underrated Breakaway Esports, possibly besides themselves, for a lot of the season, honestly. And every week I'm like, hey, they're better than I thought. But then it just keeps going up. My estimation keeps rising.
In saying
it's
that,
hard to calibrate.
They've only actually won 5 maps in total, even though they're 2-1, which is kind of hard to believe when you think about it. How is that? Is that even possible? And I'm just looking at the standings here.
I mean, they got 4 they got 4-0 by order, right?
Yeah, so
that didn't hurt. They got 3-1 against Kanga, and then they no, so they've got 6 map wins.
Okay, so this is a mistake then. I don't know. Whatever. Let's move on. Breakaway Esports, though, what they do have and what we do know, they've got 1 map win in this series. They're on the verge of possibly making it 2, Gino.
There's every chance here that they can win this map and come into halftime with a commanding lead. So, C-Slids, they do run out with the Diva, so no funny business this time. The Monkey has been put back on the shelf where I think, honestly, he belongs at the moment.
So, I think every time Breakaway Esports have not had the Diva, they've looked like a bottom 2 team. But the Diva being used, they look like a top 3 team with the way they're playing right now for the easy charge onto Mini. And as they can now push onto the point without having to worry about the Reinhardt. Nox is the next target. Apparently it is quite low. Oily on top though, trying to provide some damage. Winter though, forced down by D-Field. Oily just trying to do like a little U-turn back up to the top ground. Not going to work. Does get D-Max. Melbourne Mavericks did get the double though into Jervis and onto Quadjay. Baby Horror just before that. So it's not as if Breakaway Esports have really got a whole number of players onto the point. And with that sound barrier by Fluoro, they are going to withhold this first push from Breakaway.
Breakaway Esports perhaps need a little bit more killer instinct there. There are a couple of supports for the Melbourne Mavericks quite low up the back. They don't manage to finish them off. You see Fluoro jumping around the top, being a little bit careful. It's very hard to get a Lucio, you know, playing around on the jungle gym like that. And unfortunately, the sound barrier comes out just in time to push Breakaway Esports back. But they will come in now with their own, and an Earth Shatter that's looking pretty good. Forbal's there with the Transcendence,
though, as you mentioned, is there for Formals and for the Melbourne Mavericks. Winter, though, wasn't able to get the rally in time, and now the Graviton Surge for Breakaway Esports on top of this payload self-destruct to follow. And Quadjay with a double kill. And the Breakaway Esports are the ones who will be getting this first checkpoint. Almost expected now. You kind of feel like the way they've been matching up with the Melbourne Mavericks, I would have been more surprised if they hadn't got full health than anything.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're definitely seeing the gap between these 2 teams is not particularly large right now. Breakaway Esports cracking open that first point like an Easter egg. Like a 5-year-old who's been waiting for that chocolate all year. Now, Very quick engagement from Melbourne Mavs here, and they just go in. I don't think Breakaway were expecting that Earth Shatter coming out of Mini at all, but they do manage to get it out. But 2 support ultimates used. Yeah,
as you said, 2 support ultimates used. Rally, Sound Barrier for Breakaway Esports to kind of get this fight into their favor. They also used the Earth Shatter too, so rather than having to delay and letting Melbourne Mavericks get that fight win, they wanted to fight that one back because it gets them out of that chokehold and away from that big door and allows them to now push through. So not only do they don't waste time having to come back from spawn and still let Melbourne Mavericks hold that position, they win the fight, they push through.
Yeah, they get through that all-important doorway, and for Mavs, you know, they decided to eschew using the choke point for their defensive advantage and instead go for the element of surprise. Doesn't work out for them this time, but they do have extra support ultimates due to the ones they baited out of Breakaway Esports in that last fight.
Early Sound Barrier, Breakaway Esports just kind of fall back though and wait for that to dissipate and go away, and now they can just come back to the fight, not even having to worry about the Lucio Sound Barrier. They will have a couple of ults to play with here if they choose to. Considering the position they're holding, they could have decided to wrap around from the other side. They're not going to do so. Speed Boost now comes out. Baby Pyro with the Transcendence because the Graviton Surge of Nox. As the self-destruct from Oily will pick up 4. That's a big critical kill because 4 has got that Earth Shatter available. At this point, Breakaway are going to lose the fight. They have to concede.
They are going to push back, and all the good work they did getting themselves out of that spawn, out of first point and into the Westworld version of Holy World here. Holy World?
Holy World.
It's a theme park now. You get on Ryan's wild ride whenever he charges.
Look at this grab though onto Mini. I think they were expecting more of Melbourne Mavericks to actually be sitting in that corner, so it's almost as if it's like a one-man grab in the end and it's going to bite and be... Wow. That was so smart because they were expecting all of Mav to sort of be sitting in that corner behind the shield of Mini. It was only Mini.
No, and he was waiting there because you saw Winter go up very close. He had the rally on, so he wasn't too worried about getting bursted down quickly, and a nice stun shadow combo.
They couldn't even get Mini either. That's the funny part.
No, well, I think once they had the Earth Shatter ready to go and Winter's Shield Bash, it was very hard to do anything from there. So Breakaway, despite looking good on the defense, they're now with 1 minute 50 seconds, and they're struggling to get through this second phase. It's been very tough for them.
Certainly has. Earth Shatter
Nice
from pretty far back
from
4. As you mentioned, the bubbles from Nox are able to keep Melbourne Mavericks up but about now with the Transcendence, and also with the Sound Barriers used. Basically, Melbourne Mavericks just throwing out all of their ultimates right now. Not a lot of kills, though, being transitioned from those ultimates that we use. D-Field's almost got that rally available, but the huge Earth Shatter from Mini may turn this into the favor of the Melbourne Mavericks. Oily, though, very low, very close, able to just pretty much shift away from 4. Stays alive for the time being for the Melbourne Mavericks, and Forball's picking up the double kill. Minute and 13 seconds, and all of a sudden Breakaway Esports are on the verge of having this series tied up 1-1.
So close for Oily, though.
Yeah.
If Baby Poro had to hit 1 or 2 more headshots, the mech would be down, and Breakaway Esports would have one more option in engaging here. 1 minute left. Couple of ultimates ready to go, and we see Melbourne Mavericks actually devoid of them at the moment. If they can push in quickly here, Breakaway, they can make you know, they can make a meal out of these guys.
They could also get a 2-for-1 if this fight doesn't quite go their way. They may still have a little bit of time, but they've got to go now. They've got to make this quick, and they've got to actually win this fight because there's only 30 seconds remaining. They don't have time to just sit back and try and pepper away at the Melbourne Mavericks, because all that's going to do is allow the Melbourne Mavericks to build up ult charge, essentially, which is why they've now just used the Sound Barrier. As they also use the Transcendence, though. I'm not sure about that one. This may open it up for Breakaway Esports.
I mean, look how many ults they've got.
Does still have that Graviton Surge, and now it's time for them to respond with their own. But they will go for the Sound Barrier and Transcendence. Both teams basically double stacking their support ultimates at the exact same time. 4, though, holds on to that Earth Shatter. And it's a big one. It's a big shatter coming out for Breakaway Esports. They can clean up on the Melbourne Mavericks. They can get to the second checkpoint, but there will be still time for the Melbourne Mavericks as long as this doesn't get a stall there. Just leave him. Leave Forball's alive in the back, maybe. Oh, they could have staggered that a little bit longer, I reckon.
Yeah, potentially, depending on how much
they didn't maybe want to risk it, though.
Quad J had there, they might have had an option to do that. However, it is overtime, which means you do
I think they're going to get this anyway.
A little bit slower. Melbourne Mavericks are going to get there just in time with the speed boost available through Rally's Winter's Rally. And that really helps them, you know, distract them, and Mini comes in with the shatter.
No ults at all here for Breakaway Esports. Time to just get on the left click here,
Keep
which is
Slids
what
alive.
they are able to do. D-Mac onto Oily now running around as the pilot mode diva, and somehow, even with that initial Earth Shutter from Mini coming around the back, it's still going to go the way of Breakaway Esports. They're still going to get the second checkpoint. They've got a minute and a half, though, to move this 70.75 meters.
So they lose their main tank, but they know that their win condition is the damage from that Zarya. So they keep Slids alive. You see him getting a lot of help there, a lot of peel from the Diva, and that allows them to push on to the third point. Now, look at that. It's a good spot for the Mavs to hold. Luckily, it wasn't any further back. Or they might be in trouble, but we do have Breakaway pushing in here with a minute left, so they've probably got 2 goes at this. Yeah, 2 tilts
they've got to
at the time.
They've got to hold this up further because there's only 55 seconds, and if they hold back and allow Breakaway Esports to move this payload towards the final position, all it takes is then 1 fight win. Basically, Breakaway need to win 2 fights here, and they've only got 40 seconds left. Sound barrier used by Jervis as well. I'm not sure if I agree with that. They've already lost a couple of players. Now Quad J is going to be D-Mac, so losing one of your support ultimates when Melbourne Mavericks are the ones sort of committing ults here to win this initial fight. Now Breakaway, they've got 1 fight left, and they've got to win basically the next 2.
And with 30 seconds, they don't have the rally. They don't have the trance. I feel like you could have just used your speed boost there, or just even a regular speed amp,
or just
a regular crossfade there from Lucio to try and disengage there. They use a sound barrier for it, though, and they're not going to have that all-important ultimate for this last
Quad
fight.
J is low. 4's going to be taken down. 7 seconds left. This may be the end of Breakaway Esports. They won't have time to stall this one out into overtime. Jervis last one alive. Team kill. Just enough to get the overtime, but there's no one alive, and we are going to have the series tied up 1-1. But Genome, maybe, just maybe an opportunity missed for Breakaway to go up 2-0 going into halftime.
And that's what we like to see, a 1-1 at halftime. It makes it all the more exciting when we go right down to that game 4, and it's all to play for as you finish off the series. So 1-1 now. Kanga looking very strong to start with, and honestly, I keep saying the wrong name because I just love animals so much. They're all in my head. Breakaway Esports with their lovely beaked bird are doing a fantastic job here.
They're birds.
Against
birds.
The Mavs.
Not kangaroos. But in saying that, still a very close game, obviously. And Breakaway Esports, they were able to get the defensive hold at the end of the 3rd checkpoint onto Melbourne Mavericks, gives them opportunities. No thing like time bank or having to get the whole distance. It gave them as much time as possible. They really struggled in that street space.
They really did. Mavs found their footing there, and they seem to just be able to push them back time and time again.
Like even here, look how quick they got the first point.
It really felt like Breakaway weren't expecting Mavs to take the fights when they did. You know, they'd shift the front line constantly when they were fighting on that second point. They weren't really sure if Mavs were going to fight them at the choke point further back towards the saloon, on the payload. There were a lot of options, and Mavs kept changing it up, and they really, you know, perhaps weren't managing the speed boost on the Lucio or something like that, so that when the fight happened, they didn't have all the resources they need to start it off on the right foot.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, we are going to go to a break, though. So far, this series is looking quite entertaining. It's 1-1 between Breakaway Esports and the Melbourne Mavericks. We're back after the break.